It's time. It's time we jump into color. It's the thing that we've all been waiting for. It's so hard, isn't it? But is it though? All right. So this exercise will help you kind of go through the motions of experiencing color in a way that hasn't really been taught before that I've seen. But I see it as an exercise that you can repeat. And the more you do it on simple objects, which I'll show you what we're talking about shortly, the more intuitive it becomes for your own second nature. So let's keep it simple. Let's jump right in. First thing what I want you to do is draw a cube. And if you have a hard time drawing cubes in perspective, just find reference online of one or make one in 3D to trace over. It doesn't matter. The point isn't perspective drawing in this case. It's just getting a cube. And the cube is important because we're going to be using the 1, 2, 3 read as well as shifting color depending on the hue and value. Just basic isometric view, cube, simple. Does not have to be perfect. Now what we're going to do is subdivide it as though it was a Rubik's Cube. If you go to each face, we're going to divide that into thirds. So we're going to put a tick mark here and a tick mark there. Let's go straight down. I was a little bit off there, but that's fine. Again, the point isn't really perspective. It's just setting it up. It'll all make sense shortly. So you'll just want to subdivide 6 squares onto each side. You can hold shift and just click where you want it to go. That works too for a straight line. I'm just going to keep mine loose and sketchy. All right. What is the point of the cube, you ask? To which I say RGB and CMY. But we'll start with RGB. Let's go ahead and take its own layer. And we'll make 3 copies of it. Control, Alt, Shift. We're going to move it over. That's going to make a duplicate layer. Now we have 3 of them. Now we're going to paint this cube red, this one green, and this one blue. And you might think, okay, well, we're just going to have 3 different colors. Red, green, and blue. But actually we're going to have 9 because for red, we're going to have the main light red and a shifted red that's towards cool and another shifted red towards warm. And this is going to keep multiplying as we go. So we're getting too carried away with words. Let's just lay in some gray in the background so that it stands out against something. All right. So I'm going to use the polygonal lasso tool up over here. Click and hold, pull that down or press Shift L. And on a layer below everything, we're just going to lay in a selection that we're going to fill with, for now, just a placeholder color. Neon's fine. So we're going to go to the most bright version of red there is. So you go all the way down here and you just go all the way to the corner. If you're on the HSB slider, that's going to look like this: 0, 100, and 100. Let's go back to the hue cube. And we could have just done this from the start, but fill that with red. Okay. In the earlier lesson, we talked about lighting. So we're going to imply that there's a light source from the top left. And we're going to say that we want that 1, 2, 3 read. So pretty easy. Just a bit of mathematics. Let's merge this down, lower the opacity of the cube. I'm going to lock the transparency if I didn't already. Yeah. So if here is the value that we have, we're going to assume that this is the ratio that we want to work with that we set up earlier, which is halfway to black. So if here's our local color and our local value, the shadow side is going to be halfway to black. And if you look at the numbers on the HSB slider, you could just literally put in 50, right? And then if we take that color, I'm going to keep it loose with a brush so that we can get into that mindset of painterly, well, brushwork and painting. And if I paint that as a shadow, well, it works. It kind of reads well. We could go darker and lighter if we wanted. And of course, in space, there wouldn't be this kind of value. It would go straight to black because there's no ambient lighting. But in this case, this is what works right now because it's just a nice, adequate contrast. But I did make a mistake. And that mistake is that we went straight to a darker version of that red. What I want to do instead Let's go back to the hue cube. I'm going to go ahead and undo that. I'm still at halfway to black, but what I want to do now is shift the hue, because I don't want to just stay on the red hue. I want you to become familiar with the fact that if you go darker on a color, you should also shift the hue, meaning the color. So in this case, let's go a little bit cooler. So if we take this and loop all the way around up to here, and we want to go cooler on this halfway to black, it's going to go a little bit towards magenta. And that's going to be our new value. Cool. So we're just going to lay that in. It still works, but it's now shifted. All right. So what about this side? Right now it's a 1, 2, 2 read. The bright red stuff is both the same value and hue. So let's go back to the base red. Now, instead of going halfway to black on this side for that 1, 2, 3 read, we're going to go to maybe like a 25% way to black. So it's going to be around here. And if we want to do it mathematically, go to HSB sliders and put that at 75. Problem being, though, is we didn't shift the hue, but we're not going to go cool again this time. We're not going to go towards magenta or purple. We're going to go towards yellow. We're going to go warmer. So if we just move that up a little bit, that's our new color. And it looks a bit odd right now, but once you have it set up and you look away and take another look at this, it'll have a certain effect that just looks right, or it looks appealing, right? So now when you zoom out, you zoom back in, it just feels right. If we had kept everything all in the same red hue family, it would have looked a bit weird and muddy. Maybe not weird, but it would just be missing a certain element of dynamic color range. So we got the main color from the top, we got cool version on the right, and then a warmer version on the left. So I'm going to just write that out as notes. And you've probably guessed it, we're going to do the same thing for green and blue, and then CMY will come right after.